Good morning and welcome to Evil Ginger Miniatures, in which I'm going to sit in front of the shelves of shame for hopefully one of the last times, because I'm moving into a office which should be cleared this afternoon and allow me to spend a couple of days building up. Probably tomorrow's live stream will be in front of this setup. I've tried to cover up the boring stuff that's immediately behind me, which is mostly junk I need to sort out, but the poster I was using to cover it has decided to fall off, and I've had this problem before. Pretty much nothing sticks to those shelves unless you use gaffer tape, and I'm out of gaffer tape, as it happens. Anyway, what I'm doing today is I've been sitting in front of the laptop, sort of faffing around, and I've been building some models. As I'm on a sort of a Frostgrave kick, they're Frostgrave models. This is basically a Frostgrave female soldier, Soldiers 2, and all the bits are out of it, but it has been kit bashed. I've cut the hand off a bow arm and put a knife in there because it's meant to be a thief, and I've put an open left hand on, open right hand on, so it's using a left-handed thing, and it's a running figure because thieves in the game are one of the cheap, fast-moving models. And I'm just going to put a little bit of Milliput putty, which I've already mixed, around the base, just to make the puddle base and the main plastic base, which is a 25mm Renedra one, blend together, especially when I've finished them and got some sand on them and they're painted, so you'll think it's actually cast into a big base. Now, that was quick. Probably might have to do some filling around the shoulders, but it's not long gone off, so I'm not going to do that because I don't knock the arms off. It takes a couple of hours of plastic cement, which is what I've used on this, to go off properly, and it is unwise to rush stuff. It's generally unwise to rush stuff when you're modelling anyway. There's fast and then there's rushing, and rushing is generally destructive and ends up slower than not. Also, while I'm rolling a piece of Milliput, like I did plasticine when I was a kid, we have a couple of knolls we built up. I've been clearing out my sprue collection because I've got loads of damn things, and most of them got stuff on them, but they need condensing into a smaller space than they're taking up. Basically, this is built up the knoll set, belt clusters from the knoll set. It's pole arm. It's a soldier, which in Frostgrave have a two-handed weapon. And in this case, the two-handed weapon is a glaive. And I'm getting that little fillet of Milliput and doing it round the base. In Frostgrave terms, these are paid-for soldiers, but they are some of the cheapest paid-for soldiers at 50 gold a go. So you can get quite a lot of them in a starter warband if that's what you want to do. They aren't as good as the men-at-arms with shields, and they're less survivable because they've got shields. But they don't half hit hard because they've got two-handed weapons, and if you want to smack someone around here with a glaive, it's going to hurt. And as usual, I've not got anything resembling a sculpting tool, so I shall pick up a piece of random stuff. This is a pair of tweezers from the late lamented Wilco, and all I'm doing is just making sure that I've got that level with the base, because it doesn't look very nice if you've actually got the putty up higher than the edge of the base, or over the edge of the base. That's that one done. And I've got one more knoll. These knolls will need a bit of filling around the shoulder, but for the same reasons as I said before, won't be done until they've gone off properly. Again, this is a knoll paid for soldier with a glaive. There's a two-handed swordsman who I might be making up next, because I've got a pile of sprues just off to this side, which I dragged out when I was sorting through. Just make sure it gets just to the base edge, because I've got quite a lot of putty, and it's a waste not to use it for something. Putting a lone sort of piece of stone that's escaped from a building, but that's one of the paid for soldiers. Now, I've still got some more putty, so I want to do some more figures. Again, 25mm Renedra base. They happen to be green. There's no reason for them necessarily being green, and a fairly complete sprue of Gnolls, which I'm going to make a couple of paid-for soldiers out of to go on an all-Gnoll warband. And probably, now I've got a chopping board just off this side, which is why I'm leaning over here. So I want a couple more. Gnolls like that. And I do the naughty thing of twisting off the sprue once I can do. I'm going to have to clean up the shoulders anyway. I'll do a couple of Gnoll thieves and a thug. Right, so what are we going to use? We're going to use the axe. Again, if I don't use clippers, I find them hard to control, and I find the bits that come off when you use clippers even harder to control. And if you've seen pictures of my workshop, you don't want pieces of stuff twanging all over the place. It is a actually, I better stick these down, because the longer they get to go off, the more likely this is, again, a boarding file from. And yes, I'm probably doing horrible things to my laptop, but it's a tool, and I can dust it when I need to. So these are going to be 2 more soldiers. You get 1 glaive. You get plenty of 200 weapons on the sprue, but you don't get but you only get 1 glaive. You get a glaive, an axe, and a glaive, an axe, and a great sword as choices, as weapon choices. I happen to think axes and glaives work better. This is the glaive arm which I'll be using. There's a second hand that hooks underneath it when it's on, but I need it. I need those to go off. And as it's going to be a basic warband, I've got poor paid for soldiers, and I'm going to get 4 roguish types. And again, I will be cutting stuff off on the one side and gluing them down. The 3 soldiers I usually do as a standard set of 2 thieves and 2 thugs. Thieves are faster moving and less good fighters. Thugs are better fighters. Thieves are also only armed with a dagger, which is the worst weapon in the game. But if you want someone to rush up, grab some treasure, and then GTFO, they're really useful. There are other better fast characters, fast soldiers, but they all cost money, which you probably won't have at the beginning. And these are for the Etsy shop eventually, and are building what I consider to be a relatively optimal starting warband, having played it a bit. So you get a mix of free and paid for soldiers, and you hopefully get a decent unit. So if you're playing the game and you just bought a couple of my warbands, you're not going to find that there's a soldier in there type that's very specialist or you don't like. The specialist soldiers and that sort of thing are things that come later when you've worked out a play style. This will cope with most play styles. It's got fast moving units, it's got fighter units, and of course it's got the Wizard and the Apprentice, who are your principal attacking units. This one, will need to have a body on. They're not there. A couple of them are done in halves, and you could theoretically put a male shirt on one of these off, say, a goblin, one of the goblin cavalry, wolf riders. Again, it would allow you to create a Gnoll that would be an armored fighter. Again, and I'm still wearing my actual what's it glasses, which explains why I'm not being able to see what I'm doing. These are what I use for things. They need a bit of a clean, but they are a set of reading glasses with a set of clip-ons, and the cleaning method is probably not what my optician would recommend. But being the the skirts of this sweater I'm wearing, because it is, despite being what is alleged to be summer in the UK, it is decidedly crummy and wet. That seemed glued together. You can rotate the body a little bit to give a bit more variety of pose, and that will need to go off a bit longer so as not to disturb things. So what I'll do is because this milliput is beginning to go off, I will do the base edges on those and probably leave them at that and show them on later when I've got them all constructed. As I mix this, before I got excited about discovering that I had a community tab, and feel free. And there's a starting comment on the community tab, and if you want to say rude things about me, feel free. I'm perfectly happy to deal with stuff, and basically anything you want me to do, just ask. Now we've got the community tab, and that's probably going to be the next thing I put up on it. Is what would you like me to do? May have a poll, or may just ask for suggestions, and once we get suggestions, I'll knock it into a poll. But again, I'm just working this on, and it's getting a bit stiff, which is what happens to milliput. It still take an hour or so to go off to be properly hard, but it's beginning to get a little bit difficult to work. So I'm trying to do this as quickly as possible. Ideally, I would have glued these on an hour or so before, so that the glue was actually gone off but there's very little plan to these little chats. I just come on and do them. Sort of spontaneously in the moment, as I don't have the kit to really do edited videos. I will do, and I've signed up for things to teach me how to do it, so you will watch me learning how to edit videos, which will probably cause anybody that does this regularly to shout and hurt and stuff, but it's how you learn. And these plastic glass, and this is how you get fingerprints on the glasses, by the way, because they're you have to flip them, which means you're handling them. Milliput, you should really be using gloves, but I hate gloves. I don't have a lot of manual dexterity, and I find they reduce it to a point where it's not usable. So I put up with this, I do my hand, and then I go and wash my hands before I do anything that might involve me eating the stuff, because it's alleged to be at least slightly carcinogenic. But then life is pretty much carcinogenic, so you pay your money and you take your choice. Plodding on, just doing the last one, leaving that guy who I just glued it was the two halves till last, because I don't want to be knocking him apart while I'm assembling him. And again, working that so that's good and flat, and that it doesn't. And because the Knowles puddle base is quite large, you have to be careful around the edges that you don't actually get it hanging over the edges. Again, a bit of care and attention usually prevents that from happening. And if you do go over the edge and it's a problem, milliput files really nicely. It files nicer than green stuff, which is a bit leathery even when it's hard. And again, you can cut it with a knife or trim it with a knife on the edge of the base. And you can find random bits of stuff on your desk that are floating around to use as the reason for licking the tool, though don't put it in your mouth after it's been near the milliput, is the fact that milliput doesn't stick to wet things. So if you want a tool not to stick, when it's wet, if it's a bit wet, it'll cure that problem. It's more of a problem with green stuff, which is actually very sticky compared with milliput. In fact, it's sticky to the point that I have actually used it as, in fact, I regularly use it to stick things to things. And this is going to be a little block. So Milliput doesn't sculpt or hold detail quite at the crispness that green stuff does, but it's harder when it's gone off, and it's perfectly all right for doing the odd block. And it basically adds to the character of the bases, and also helps to hide the puddle base a bit more if the piece of rock goes across the boundary between the Milliput and the puddle base, like I'm doing here. Don't know whether you can see that, but it's breaking the boundary. And again, square it up a little bit so it looks like a piece of work stone rather than just a blob of Milliput. And again, Milliput sticks very well to itself, so you don't actually have a problem with them falling off. And if they do fall off, they'll stick on with super glue. Again, something I need to order more of because I'm getting very short of it. Just keep plodding along, and there's another one, another block done on the base, and the arms will go on later. There'll be pictures of him and his mates shortly, but I'm giving up an hour or so to go off and let the things go. Well, that's it for now. I'll be on live properly tomorrow evening, which reminds me that one of the jobs I've got to do today is to put the is to set the live stream up. It'll be 7 o'clock tomorrow, British Standard Time, and feel free to drop on and have a chat with me. It'll be quite possibly the last one where I'm sitting in front of this stuff, because before next week I'm hoping to have some shelves and a setup upstairs, and even if I only take the laptop up there, it'll be in front of the editing computer that I'm buying, because it's all go here. Anyway, have a nice day, and I will see you tomorrow, hopefully, and possibly later on Facebook. Take care. Bye.